Yo, 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 what is going on, guys? My name is Tyler. I'm one of the FF mediators here at Face Off, and we're back for another week of tight end rankings. We've made it all the way to week 13, and man, it just seems like this year continues to fly by, both the year in general, but also the fantasy football season. We've made it all the way to Thanksgiving, and for all of my United States people out there who are watching, first off, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a great time celebrating with your family. You all eat lots of delicious food and enjoy some great football coming up this week. So, speaking of great football, let's hop right into it. This is week 13, and as such, with Thanksgiving coming, there are no buys this week. So, everybody is in play. Now, next week is different. We've got some big teams going on by, so you'll have to keep tuned or stay tuned for that. But without further ado, we'll start here. And my tier one this week is actually only consisting of two guys. That is Trey McBride and George Kittle. These two stand out above all the rest for me. Trey McBride continues to get it done, obviously, as the tight end one on the year. He is outscoring Travis Kelce, who is tight end two currently, by over 40 points. He's at 41.2 point difference over second place. That's just how consistent he has been. And with Jacoby Brissett at the helm, he still continues to impress. His lowest finish is tight end six since Brissett has started. And not only that, but the rest of this offense is looking great. Michael Wilson has shown out the last 2 weeks. He had 23 targets in the past 2 weeks combined. And Marv is coming back. He came back out of that appendicitis. Him having his appendix removed is the reason he's been out. I think, with him coming back this week, I think the offense will continue to provide some good value. And Trey McBride being at the helm is obviously no surprise. Now, George Kittle here. Last week, he had 6 catches on 10 targets for 78 yards, led the team in receiving. With Brock Purdy coming back, obviously that connection has fostered a lot of attention in the past. It still looks to be the same now. Since George Kittle has come back from his hammy in week 7, which was his first game back, outside of that week, he's averaging 16.6 points per game. That just goes to show you that this dude is elite. Like you continue to play these two guys. McBride's getting ready to take on Tampa Bay. They're the 10th best defense against tight ends. I'm not too worried about that. The thing is, he's involved regardless. He's the number one option there. Whether Marv or Michael Wilson is there, it does not matter. Trey McBride is the number one option. So you continue to play the Trey McBride, like I said, against Tampa Bay. Kittle's getting ready to take on Cleveland, 19th best defense. So you play him too. I mean, these guys, they're the target earners in their offense. I have a feeling Kittle's just going to continue to propel these elite, like your teams, through the playoffs. So you continue to play both of those guys. And then we'll move on here to tier two, where you see more familiar names. You've got Brock Bowers here at 3, Travis Kelce, Tyler Warren, and then, yes, I do still have Gadsden here at 6, and we'll explain why here in a little bit. Now, Brock Bowers, I moved him down to tier 2. Yes, he did have 6 catches for 55 yards this past week and led the team in receptions. However, Chip Kelly was fired by the Raiders this past week. Um, Now, sure, could the offense change for the better? Yes, absolutely. Bowers is still the most talented option on that offense. So that's why I bump him down here. Him being in tier two for me makes perfect sense. I just want to see how the offense shakes out. There could be some offensive scheme changes with their new coordinator coming in. Now, he has been the coordinator. I forget his name, so please, please forgive me for that. But he has been the coordinator for the Raiders before. Now, this was prior to Brock Bowers being there, but I think he realizes probably the weapon he has in Brock Bowers, and they will continue to feed him. I just want to see what the offense looks like overall. And because of my belief in his talent, I will put Brock Bowers here still in my tier two. Now, the man on the graphic, Travis Kelce. Like I said, he is the tight end two overall on the season and getting ready to take on Dallas this coming week, which I didn't say it before, but Brock Bowers does take on the Chargers, sixth best defense. That bakes in very little to my decision to keep him here. It's just talent. Now, like I said, back to Travis Kelce, getting ready to take on Dallas, 13th best defense. against the tight end position. He had 4 catches for 43 yards against the Colts this past week. I was very glad that he didn't have a better game. However, all they had to do was run crossers the entire time. And between Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and everybody else, everybody was wide open. So, yes, Kelsey didn't have the best game against the Colts, but he is averaging 61 yards per game, and that's third best. That's behind Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. So, he's still getting it done at age 36. Now, obviously, there's been rumors about him deciding what he's going to do um, by March for next year. That has no effect on this year or this week. You continue to play Travis Kelce in a Dallas matchup that may be pretty high scoring. And then here at 5, I've got Tyler Warren. The rookie continues to impress. He's the tight end 4 on the year. He's only right at 2 points behind Travis Kelce. That's how close these guys are at the top, besides Trey McBride. But Warren does have a worse matchup. He's taking on Houston. They are the 4th best defense against tight end, and their defense looks amazing. Um, Kind of intimidated this week, not going to lie, being the divisional matchup. He led the team in targets, and he tied for first in receptions this past week with Michael Pittman. Um, like I said, the matchup is just going to be tough. I think it will be a close game. Typically, these games in somewhere in the 20s. And so for me, I think that's probably where it will stay as long as our offense can keep up with their defense, which has been proven to be difficult so far with the Texans. So moving on to Gadsden here. Okay, so why do you have Gadsden in tier 2, Tyler? Well, he's coming off bye this past week, and it's no shock that the 2 weeks prior to bye, he was having less involvement. He hadn't really scored. He's not scored since October 19th. So it's been over a month since he scored a touchdown. I truly think that changes this week. They're getting ready to take on Las Vegas. It's going to be probably a decently close game, but Gadsden and the Chargers have had, a week, 2 weeks to plan this. So I'm not super worried about it. The only concern I have with the Chargers is the fact that um, the offensive line is banged up. They've had so many injuries with Joe Wall and Rashawn Slater and all those guys. It's not really allowed Justin Herbert to throw the ball downfield effectively. They do have weapons there. They've got Ladd, they have QJ, they have Keenan. So somebody's going to be left out every week. Like we said here more recently, it's been QJ. Ladd's been, producing at a consistent rate. Keenan also too. They have that rapport, so he's been doing all right. And Gaston's been doing well. He has had, let's see here, I had it wrote down, 5 targets per game since week 5. So that just goes to show you in what is that 8 or 9 games so far? 8 probably considering the bye. Um, he's continued to have targets from Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert is looking to him. All it takes is for him to fall in the end zone, and I think he's about due for one, like I said, with it being over a month since he scored. Now, the next guy on my graphic, when you see it here, you're gonna be like, why? He's not been consistent all year, but leading my tier 3 here, I have Mark Andrews here at 7. Now let me explain to you why. If you did not watch my video last week, I had a bunch of people that were talking to me on Twitter, on Reddit, where I post everything that, oh, I had Hunter Henry in my spot last week at 7, I believe. And he was taking on Cincinnati. Guess where he finished last week? That was the tight end 1. I had people telling me that I was way too high on Hunter Henry, that they wouldn't trust him there, and it was a bad call. Well, that goes to show you how bad the Cincinnati defense is, especially against tight ends. And so for me, in a game where Joe Burrow may be coming back off of IR, possible shootout. We've not really seen the Ravens offense look great, but they're going to have to score points if they're going to keep up with a Joe Burrow led Bengals offense. Um, sure, the rust could shake off and it could be real close. However, like I said last week, going against Cincinnati, they are especially weak against the tight end position. I would not be surprised if Mark Andrews gets in the end zone not once, maybe even twice with the way they use him at the goal line. So I think Mark Andrews is a strong play. I don't think, obviously, he's in the tier of those guys above him. But I think he's a strong play against Cincinnati. Now, you got Dallas Goedert here at 8. Getting ready to take on Chicago. Now, he didn't have a great week this past week. He only had 2 catches for 20 yards. However, if you watch the game, you would know why that is. That's because A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon took over this game. They had 21 out of 27 completions from Jalen Hurts. Obviously, like I said, Goddard had 2. So that's 23 target or completions accounted for, receptions, however you want to say that. It's kind of tough when you have so many mouths to feed and when the offense is humming like that. It's really tough. Somebody's going to get left out, like we said with the Chargers. This past week, it was Goddard. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case going forward. He's been used all year. He's very involved in the red zone. I think with a Bears offense that is trending upwards, if they can score on this Philly defense, then the Eagles are going to have to turn around and score points back, obviously. So I think Goddard has a good shot at getting in the end zone. Chicago is the 20th best defense against tight ends, so pretty decent matchup. That's why he's here in my tier 3 at tight end number 9. Now, tight end number 10, Jawan Johnson. Um, Man, he had a hot start to the year, and then when Taysom Hill came back, everybody's like, "Oh no, he's not going to be worth anything." Foster Moreau's coming back. Jawan Johnson's falling off the map, and he did for like 2 weeks, and then he has been consistent ever since. 6 catches last week for 46 yards on 7 targets. It doesn't matter if the quarterback is Spencer Rattler. It doesn't matter if it's Tyler Shuck. He's being used pretty heavily here and um, they're getting ready to take on Miami, the 30th worst or 30th best against tight ends, which means they're the third worst. Um, he is tied with a guy above him who I just realized that I skipped. Great, go me. Which we'll we'll talk about in a second. He's tied with Hunter Henry, and they're averaging 8.7 fantasy points per game so far this year. And we'll just use that to talk to about him. Is Hunter Henry here at 9? Like I said, he finishes the tight end 1 this past week. He had 10 targets for 115 yards and a touchdown. He caught 7 of those. That's all it took. And if if I have to reiterate it to you one more time, this Cincinnati defense is so bad against tight ends. Please, 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 please play your Ravens tight end. Whether it's Mark Andrews, likely is a little bit more I'd be more hesitant, obviously, as he's the backup. But if you have Andrews, please play him. Hunter Henry looked great this past week. We were calling that last week, and it completely came through. Now, do I think he repeats last week's performance this week? No, I do not. He's getting ready to take on the Giants, who are 12th best against the defense. Now, we'll have to see who is the quarterback for the Giants. Is Jackson Dart coming back? Is it going to be Jameis? Regardless, I think it will be a somewhat close game. Obviously, James tends to, throw it way down the field. His depth of target's much higher, I think, than Jackson Dart's. And so we saw that last week with Wan'Dale Robinson. Darius Slayton went out of the game with a few injuries, but I think he had a few deep targets as well. And Isaiah Hodgins, he's spreading the ball around. So we'll see. I think they'll get it done, on offense. And so, with that being said, I think the Patriots will have to keep up. We'll see who ends up there. Um, he's very touchdown dependent. He has been all year. That's the reason he's down here in tier 3, unlike last week where I said he was borderline must play as a tight end 1 last week. Now, back to our thing here. You'll see the man on the thumbnail when you clicked was Brenton Strange. And the reason why is because he is back. I wanted to see kind of how he would look coming off the injury this past week. And he looked great, honestly. 5 catches on 5 targets for 93 yards in his first week back from injury. Jacksonville, they love to use their tight ends. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence targeted the crap out of Evan Ingram last year. That has shifted to Brenton Strange now. Um, and the usage is still there. He started off at a good pace at the start of this season. If we go back and we look here, If you go back and look at his game log from the start of the year, he had 4 targets week 1, 5 week 2 versus Cincy, 7 and 7. So he was involved heavily, and then he got hurt in the Kansas City game where he only had 1 target, and he's missed since then. So his first week back, he's the tight end 5. I think you could do a whole lot worse than Brenton Strange, and that's why he's here. Getting ready to take on Tennessee. It's not a great matchup. They're the 8th best against tight ends, but like we've said multiple weeks in a row, that's just because their offense hasn't been able to keep up. So we will see. I think Brenton Strange will be used enough that you can throw him in your lineup. I have a lineup where he's starting for me, where I lost Tucker Kraft earlier in the year. So feel comfortable starting Brenton Strange. Here at 12, you've got Jake Ferguson. Man, the fall off has been not horrendous. He's still been consistent. He had 5 catches for 60 yards this past week. The only issue, and I mean the only issue with Jake Ferguson is the fact that CD and George Pickens are going insane. Pickens looks like a borderline wide receiver 1 at this point. And whether it's on Dallas's offense or he goes somewhere else, he's going to get paid at the end of this year with the way he is playing. Between those two, Dak has whoever he wants to throw the ball to. And yes, they throw it to Jake Ferguson sometimes. When they throw it to Jake Ferguson, though, if you watch that game this past week, Jake Ferguson is running over people. He's going to get his yards one way or the other. All it takes is him to fall in the end zone, and he has a great week. So I'm still playing Jake Ferguson here. They're getting ready to take on Kansas City, opposite the Travis Kelce matchup that we talked about earlier. He's just playing third fiddle. He's going to be touchdown dependent. Yes, he has a solid floor, but if you're really looking for upside, to you're definitely going to want to see if he can get some touchdowns there. Now, tier 4. You can see this whole list. Like we said, usually we don't go through this entire list, so we're just going to pick a few closer to the top here to talk about. The man on the graphic, Theo Johnson. Like I said, the Patriots are getting ready to take on the Giants, and so vice versa. They will take New York will take on the Patriots. He had 3 catches for 77 yards this past week. He's the tight end 10 on the year, guys, and he's a rookie. So this is the one that I'm just playing him as a streamer, somebody who's probably could be on your waivers depending on whoever, that other person had come back. Like we said, is Jackson Dart back? If so, he's had 25 targets in 4 games with Jackson Dart at the helm. So you've already seen that Theo has a solid floor even with Jameis at quarterback. And if Jackson Dart comes back, he's averaging, what is that? Close to 6, a little over 6 targets a game. So I'm playing Theo pretty much regardless as a streamer. If I don't have one of the elite guys, and I'm not really worried about it there. New England's the 24th worst defense or best defense against tight ends, so you just play the matchups. Speaking of good matchups, Dalton Schultz, like I said, taking on the Colts, 27th best against tight end. Now he did not have a good week this past week. I was warning everybody last week of that because he was taking on the Bills. I was hoping maybe he would just be a little bit more involved, have a more solid floor, but he only had 1 catch for 8 yards. Stroud is still in concussion protocol, but he is practicing. So we will see if he comes back, how that changes the offense. Davis Mills has looked great. Not saying that Davis Mills should get the start over a healthy CJ Stroud. Just an interesting observation, though. He has a great matchup. He's produced in Stroud's absence. I'm putting him out there pretty much regardless of who's at quarterback, and just hoping for the best. Now, this next name on the list is kind of a head scratcher, guys. Not gonna lie. Kyle Pitts. He has been consistent when everybody's been on the field this year. Not like the most consistent. He's had kind of a solid floor. I feel like people don't like want to write him off and say that he's not been any good. I mean, he's tight end 20. It's not great. Um, but that being said, this past week was a disappointment. There's no other way around it. Drake London being out, the only time we'd seen that earlier this year, Pitts had 9 targets and 9 catches and produced, for a decent amount. But this past week was not that. 2 catches for 25 yards. in Drake London's absence. He's probably going to be out again this week, but you saw Darnell Mooney get the long touchdown last week. Honestly, he just didn't step up the way, and that's the way he's down here in the streamers. I'm willing to roll him out there just because of his name, and hoping he gets back to form, but I'm not banking on him. That's why he's here in tier 4 with all of these other streamers. And then moving down a few more spots here, yes, you'll see Colson Loveland is still in this. He's taking over the wide receiver or the tight end 1 role. Um, I was going to say the number 1 receiving tight end role there for the Bears. They're just getting ready to take on the Eagles. So that's a difficult matchup. The next one I want to talk about is Cade Otton. Getting ready to take on Arizona, who's the 22nd best against tight ends. He had 7 targets this past week, but he only caught 4 for 21 yards. Now, that being said, Baker was injured. Um, he was kind of injured early and was banged up. Came back in and tried to play, and then it just got to the point where Baker couldn't do it anymore. And Teddy Bridgewater came out, and he was the quarterback there. Now, Teddy Bridgewater is taking first team reps. That's been a report, which makes me lean that Baker is not playing this week. You had Godwin come back last week as well, which may have affected things a little bit. And then also Bucky's practicing too. Bucky Irving, the running back. So is he back? If Godwin, he continues to threaten Cade Otton's workload. And then Egbuka too, he's going to get his targets. But all these pieces are hit or miss, and depend kind of on Baker, really. So if Baker's not playing, it's going to be tough to play these guys. I mean, you're playing Egbuka, you're playing Bucky, if he plays, most likely. But I have a hard time playing Otton, which is why he's down here in the streamers. If you have him and you have to play him, sure. But I'm not super thrilled this upcoming week. And then just a kind of a dart throw name is Dawson Knox, down there at 21. Now, he's getting ready to take on Pittsburgh. He has a very good matchup. They're the 29th best against tight ends. He only had 3 catches for 17 yards this past week, but it was against the Houston defense that's like top 4 against tight ends as well. So it was a rough matchup, but Kincaid is still out, having a good matchup against Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's going to be Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers this upcoming week, but you're really just looking at a touchdown. And I think Dawson Knox has a good chance. He's going to be touchdown dependent, but he's in an offense that needs weapons. They have had Keon Coleman being inactive 2 weeks in a row. You've had, I think it's Tyler Shavers that's kind of stepped up. If I'm not mistaken, I think they just signed Brandon Cooks. I don't expect Brandon Cooks to be anything, but that means they're still looking for receivers in this offense for Josh Allen. And so maybe Dawson Knox steps up and gets in the end zone this coming week against Pitt. But we'll just have to see kind of how it shakes out. It's somebody you could take a dart throw on if you're in that tight end purgatory where you don't have one of the studs. But that's going to do it for me. We're running at about 23 minutes right now. So I'll go ahead and get it wrapped up. Like I said before, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Let me know down below if you disagree with any of my rankings. Feel free to like and share the video with your friends. And then don't forget we have a free Discord. We talk in there all the time. You can get some advice. And really and truthfully, we just like to have fun. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys, get what you need out of your tight ends. And I hope they send you to the playoffs. Until next week, see you.